It's Rhythm and Soul Radio. I am Marco Nobles. We have our guest line open, what we have now called our virtual studio open. This is Prince Week. I'm lifting the curtain. This interview is being recorded on Prince's birthday on June 7th. Throughout the week, we will have special programs celebrating the genius and legacy that is Prince. Of course, we are huge Prince fans here at Rhythm and Soul Radio, and this is an extremely special interview for me. I'm joined by author, journalist. He's also a professor now, Neal Karlen. So first of all, Neal, thank you for joining me and doing this.
Thank you. And now I should have shaved. I mean, I really look pretty skanky here. I mean, I've been up and working, and it's 100 degrees here. And you know those days, like in New York has them too. Those you're having them now. The hot days where it's like this T-shirt. Should I, brushing your teeth is hard. So
and we're still virtual. So
yes,
for the most
part. So
I
should be here in a three-piece suit going, hello, Marco. Thank you for having me on. And it's Prince's birthday, and it's interesting who comes in town for Prince's birthday and who comes in town for the anniversary of his death. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's just they're different people. It's like you get calls from different people, but it's fun. It's a real universe, and it's been fun going into the. I had to take time out for a while after, I wrote this book, and and the paperback will come out, and you're sort of like, I didn't want to be a professional Prince person. Those are the I was not. But I'm glad everyone seems to have liked it and seen it for, why did we need another Prince book? Do we, and I thought there had been so many great Prince books out, discographies and biographies and pathographies. They're just, the guy was missing, and he was a guy. There was a bear there.
Right. And so, you're talking about the book, and of course, for everybody listening and watching, as we are also on Twitch and on YouTube and on Mixcloud, visually, and of course, we're on rhythmandsoulradio.com and also on WHCR here in New York. Neal is in Minnesota. He's in Minneapolis. He's originally from Minneapolis. Neal is on the show because he is, or I should say was, the trusted journalist that Prince would talk to for a 12 years period. So there are, three major interviews that Prince did for Rolling Stone magazine from 1984 to about 1991 that all done with Neal Karlen. You also did special interviews with him with the New York Times, I think, right?
With the New York Times, and I actually did them for him. I did one that was like his last testament that was supposed to go with his will, which I never saw. But he said, and if you think, he was very well aware of, was the central plot point in Graffiti Bridge was who was the bar left to, Morris or. But it's his birthday in Minneapolis, and that's nice. It's just I've been I saw your email, and it was so great. I'd been so heavy in the Prince, the whole world, and I was getting in fights on Facebook with people, and I thought, this is not what it's about. It's about the music. And so I saw your email, and I thought, God, Lord knows how many emails I've missed. And I just sort of had to listen to the music and be quiet and stop giving my opinion for a few months and listen.
I'm so honored that you saw the email and replied to the email. I should mention the three articles in Rolling Stone that everyone should remember, particularly Prince fans. Is the first one is the Silence is Broken. Prince Talks. The Silence is Broken. Then there was Prince's Women, featuring Wendy and Lisa, and then there was Prince Talks again, which was the last of the three for Rolling Stone.
Right.
And out of that came a 30-plus year relationship that you ended up having with Prince, and
a friendship,
out of that,
shall we say. Yeah,
friendship.
It's funny because it's like when I think of, those are the years I was writing about him, and then I never wrote the word Prince again on purpose. I wanted to not be there's the Prince, formerly known as Neal,
right.
And I wrote 8 other books about not music and other things. But those were why when I was at Rolling Stone, I only wrote 3 music stories. The rest were those weird feature, and they were all on Prince, and it was just a coincidence. And hi, and how is it in New York? New York is I read the Times, and there's debates, and the city's opening up, and what will the New York be like? Minneapolis. Well, it's weird. We've been the center of the universe. We just didn't think it would be for someone besides Prince. I'm referring to
that brings me to, I guess I wanted to share with you how this all came about. First of all, you're a journalist, so you'll get this reference. So I've been burying the lead. We're talking to Neal because because of Prince, his relationship and friendship with Prince, but also because of his book, which is entitled "This Thing Called Life," and the subtitle is Prince's Odyssey on and off the record, written by Neal Karlen and released in hardcover last year. And you mentioned it'll be released in paperback this year.
It'll be in paperback late, like it's only been out in hardcover like 6 months, so it'll be like they wait a year usually. I think it's like, well, we're making money at this, now let's make money at this. And there's an audio portion. What's nice, what I'm glad about my book is that everything, he let me tape everything. And I don't know why, because he was so not into that, but I so didn't want to sort of ride on his coattails. One of his most interesting sayings, he once said, it wasn't a saying, he said, the problem is I can make anybody famous for 15 minutes, but I can't make them famous forever. And they never forgive me. And it's interesting, it's sort of true, in a way.
Right.
And, I never tried to make money off him. And I'm like, oh, gee, what? But it's really, I still think of like, oh, those last terrible months. And it was painful. I couldn't even listen for a year to like tapes from when I'm 25 and writing that first one. And we're both 25. I mean, he's the king of the rock and roll world, and I'm Joe Schmuck from, Rolling Stone. But it's still, you see, we're both, there's a weird synchronicity to our lives. I was born in the same hospital as him, year apart.
And you actually knew each other before as growing up, but you didn't really know you knew each other.
Right. And he was the one who remembered my grandparents until they died, lived 2 blocks away from where Prince lived. And that's where we'd run into each other at the Dairy Queen next to my grandparents, who refused to move. They were immigrants from Russia. And I don't mean to be like, note the Jewish boxing. And it was just coincidence. And he remembered I played through freshman year. He wasn't allowed. He was he truly was a great basketball at 5'2". And I knew how to spin the ball on my finger. And he remembered me as that. It's because I thought he was just flattering me and saying, "Oh, I remember you when you were 12 and you were at Dairy Queen. You were the white kid." And it was like, wait a minute, I was the white kid. So I have come to. At first, I thought he's flattering me, and I always wanted to sort of put down that, like, oh, we were even friends, because who says they're friends with Prince? It's like saying I'm friends with the Queen of England. It's just, it seemed presumptuous and ridiculous sounding, but it took me knowing him for 31 years, and a lot of people out there in the Prince world who are on your show or other shows, they were people who knew him for a short time, a long time ago. And the only thing that makes me any sort of different or whatever was that I knew him and as I knew him, I was friends with him. Sometimes I talked to him once a week on the phone for 6 weeks. Sometimes I wouldn't talk to him for a year. So it was on his terms.
As I was saying earlier, I wanted to let you know how this all kind of germinated, because I never really expected that you would respond, because I figure, you're busy, you get tons of requests to talk about Prince as a result of, writing about him for the time that you did. And of course, once you wrote the book, and again, the book is This Thing Called Life, the Prince's Odyssey on and off the record. It's available anywhere you get your books. So please get it. It's a fascinating book. I was in Minneapolis. I went to Minneapolis to celebrate my anniversary, my wife and I. And we were there we were there. Our anniversary is April 27th. So we were there the following week.
Celebrate.
We
Yeah.
went the following week, and it was really a Prince trip. We did a Prince tour, and then we went to Paisley Park and did a tour of Paisley Park and everything. And then that was all Saturday. The Sunday we went to Electric Fetus, and in Electric Fetus, I happened to see your book, and I said, "Oh, I heard about this book. I got to get this book." Bought the book, went back to the room, opened the book, saw it was an autographed copy from you, and I said, "Wow, that's really cool." Started and got into the first 60 pages of the book, and it was so emotional. It was so, I don't want to say sad, but it was sad because you could feel through the pages the care you had for him. Like you said, you never tried to make money off of him. You really kind of tried to share him. And the one thing that really struck me, because you said it a couple of times in the book, is that you hoped when he passed, you hoped that he died before he hit the ground. And it's just so, it just grabs you so much. And all the things you said, even in those first 60 pages, just talking about
That's
the
actually the
relationship.
first sentence of the book.
Yeah, that's the first
Pray
sentence.
to
But
God that he was
yeah,
dead by the time, which sounds really harsh,
yeah,
but the point is explained. But
yeah.
thank you. That's
But
very nice.
yes, but so talk a little bit about that, because rather than me explain it, it's probably much better for you to kind of explain that statement, because it gives such an insight into him as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm positively sure about Prince, after knowing him for 31 years in different cycles, was that his biggest fear, and perhaps I don't think he was afraid of anything. He sure wasn't very records like anything, was of dying alone, and not like he needed 20 people. It would have meant what he had lived his life like to him. To him,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing he ever said to me. And so my first thought when I learned, like everybody else, even though I last talked to him 3 weeks before he passed, was I hope he didn't know that he was dying alone. That's what I meant. That his worst fear wasn't. We all have our worst fears, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I'm afraid of so much.
Right.
But I just hope he wasn't aware that his worst fear, that he was dying alone. And
Right. You talked about earlier, the fact that you really did, it took you a while to realize you really did have a friendship with him. Sometimes you talk to him daily, sometimes you talk to him once for the year, but you also mentioned in the book that when you did talk to him many times, it's the middle of the night that he's calling you, and that's something only a friend can do. Call somebody in the middle of the night, and that person actually answers the phone. And talks, and that's a friendship, and that's and
well, you
even
tease him. I said, I know we're not really friends. I'm just the only other person in Minneapolis who will answer the phone. Who's up and at 4 in the morning, and we'll talk about suicide or the Vikings or whatever. And
right,
is to push him. It wasn't any, I'm not the coolest. I'm just me. Whatever that word, I can't speak in complete sentences. And he'd be like, I don't know, what, that emotional thing that I didn't realize till after he had passed and I had written the book that I really was friends with him. It just was, he was so complicated. He was the most compartmentalized person I'd ever known. No one knew who he was going out with or who his other friends were even, and we're all compartmentalized. Like, you could never have a party with everybody, but this was, for whatever reasons, and in the book I talk about his father, they're different. It's a story. And both kind of destroyed him as a person. And I don't say that like glibly. It breaks my heart because he was a friend. Was that is what made him go off into the stratosphere. Besides having the talent,
right,
he knew he would say he could play longer than anybody on this planet. He could practice and play, and he could play every instrument better than anyone in any of his band, in any band. and it separates you from humankind. You know, I start with a quote from Albert Einstein saying I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say it's weird, but he said it's strange to be so universally known and yet so lonely. Albert Einstein said that, and it breaks my heart but we talked about that. So by starting so harshly, it wasn't like I was trying to write this nasty tell. It was just, that was what I really.
That's what you felt.